Okay, how are you? How's everyone doing? Let's start with the information about what's happening in the world. Hey, well, that's it. The El Niño phenomenon has been officially declared for the United States. Yesterday we mentioned that they were already reporting that the El Niño phenomenon had been activated. And today it's official that this phenomenon is entering the United States, well, the world, right? Because in the end, it's a phenomenon that affects different parts of the world. Let's get into the details of what is known, and well, obviously that's the topic right now, isn't it? That's what I want us to talk about. And obviously, if there are other topics you want to discuss, we'll gladly talk about those as well. Let's see which cities could be the most affected by this phenomenon as well. But the global weather pattern is threatening to worsen floods and heat waves, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. With this report, it's becoming clear that the warning we've been mentioning here for months, we've been saying it here for months. We told you, hey, there are scientific reports saying that the El Niño phenomenon is going to be a strong one and that it might even arrive earlier than expected, right? Well, there was a huge possibility that this would happen. We were telling you about it here in detail, and well, now it's happening today. For us today, June 12th is a very special day because in the end, what we've been announcing to you has been confirmed. And well, that makes us feel a bit proud. To know that our news service can provide you with information that's valuable for you to prepare, right? To be ready for any situation, and also, well, not just for that, but to talk, to entertain you, but above all, more important than anything, to give you a heads up about some things that are starting to emerge. The information we discuss isn't a coincidence or a guess. But obviously, it's based on scientific sources, on sources of all kinds. But in the end, they help us have more clarity about these phenomena and about what's happening in the news around the world in general. The famous NOAA has made a statement that goes along with the WMO, but also goes along with universities from all over the world, who have each been making their own forecasts about how this situation is developing. And some of these forecasts are pretty harsh, right? I don't want us to go overboard or exaggerate or anything like that. Just stick to the facts, right? To what these warnings are saying, and that preparation should be each person's responsibility, right? Everyone should handle their own preparations, since people often have information but do nothing. We need to be responsible, right? See, projections suggest that this El Niño phenomenon could exceed 3 degrees Celsius, which would make this episode the most intense ever recorded in history. Right? So that, I think, already tells us a lot, doesn't it? Experts from the International Pacific Research Center, located in Hawaii, this archipelago has been observing and stating that there is no comparable historical precedent under the conditions of this extra warming. Because look, one thing is the normal warming the planet has right now. I mean normal, I mean extra, right? That it already has. But besides that warming that happens year after year, there's an extra one this year, which is the El Niño phenomenon. America could experience more intense episodes of rainfall, while regions in South and Southeast Asia, Australia for example, and parts of Southern Africa will face greater risks of drought. Scientists remind us that the previous El Niño episode coincided with the warmest years recorded globally. So this year could be perhaps once again the warmest in history. At least in recorded history, right? In the United States, there is a possible positive effect since Atlantic hurricane activity will probably decrease. So for our friends in the Caribbean, what I'm saying might actually be good news. Not all climate changes are negative for everyone. Sometimes, some people benefit from them. And in the case of the Atlantic, which includes the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean Sea, all of that, right? It's going to have less activity than normal. That doesn't mean hurricanes won't happen, or that you should let your guard down. But let's say that hurricanes won't be very severe, right? I mean, there will still be hurricanes. Fewer. Yes, so don't let your guard down, but stay alert about that, right? It's good news, all things considered. And on this side, in the Pacific, there will be more activity. Yes, see. However, the west coast of the United States, or from the west side of Mexico or the Pacific, could face a higher risk of coastal flooding and harmful algal blooms associated with ocean warming. The most vulnerable countries could experience, or rather suffer, more severe consequences due to possible agricultural losses or food shortages and rising prices resulting from climate changes. In response to this, a list has been published of the cities believed to be at greatest risk. And look, right off the bat they say, the cities that already have extreme climates are from the start the ones that could have the most problems. Now, researchers from Oxford, from the University of Oxford, published a global assessment. They conducted an evaluation of the entire world and identified and classified 220 major cities according to their risk of extreme heat. Well, the study reached the official confirmation of the El Niño phenomenon as well. I mean, NOAA already did it. The WMO too. Now, the University of Oxford also publishes its confirmation of the El Niño phenomenon, right? That's what I'm saying too. I think it's important. How have you been, Marvin? Thanks to those who are joining us. I know a lot of people aren't very interested in the topic of climate. I think it's really important. I appreciate it if you let me know if you like me talking about this topic so I can keep doing it, right? Yes, it's very important to know, because if not, well, I'm still going to keep researching it, but maybe I just won't talk about it anymore. You should tell me if you're interested in the topic, right? Big shout out to Cifras247. He says it's hot in the Caribbean. How is it there? It's also going to be stronger. I mean, both in the Caribbean and in the Pacific, the heat is going to be stronger. But there's a phenomenon that happens during El Niño, which is in the atmosphere, that prevents hurricanes from fully forming. No, I insist. Some will still form anyway, but there will be fewer, right? That's what is expected. So either way, there will be heat. Yes, it's going to be pretty strong, let's say. So in that sense, record heat is expected this summer, so let's not get too comfortable. That could happen. Hello, Elizabeth. How have you been? Big greetings. I think the only one from Regia who keeps joking all the time about taking things apart and putting them back together. The only one from Regia, or one of the few from Regia, who gives us a lot of thanks to everyone, to all our fellow countrymen. Marvin, how have you been? Dora, greetings. Big greetings to the whole community that's also watching us on replay. Hey, so researchers from Oxford University have decided to identify cities at highest risk. It turns out there's a city called Al-Baya Bashar, which luckily for us is far away, but not for them, right? Obviously, I want you to look at this city. It's actually the city that would have the most problems in the world this year, 2026, in terms of record temperatures. Look, it's in this area, right? Let's see if we can put it on the screen. It's here, look. It's in this area of Iraq. I mean, between Iraq, Kuwait, Iran, this whole area. That's where it's expected to be. Just look at that. Right now, they're at 46 degrees and the heat hasn't even peaked yet, right? This area between Kuwait, Iraq, Iran, all this region is where the most heat will be when it comes to extreme heat cities, right? But there are also cities like Amman, Ahmedabad, Nagpur in India, Bamako in Mali, Baghdad, the capital of Iraq, Faisalabad in Pakistan. We were lucky. We were lucky not to be in the worst cities in terms of climate. I mean, poor people over there. Let's hope they don't even see us, because they'll end up feeling even more fragile. But well, I mean, it's good to know that we're not the ones, that it's not our turn to deal with that, right? Watch out for the South Pacific. In Asia, I think that's where things are going to get the worst, the most complicated region, the Asia Pacific region, Taiwan, over there for Marcia Alexander. I send my regards to the community watching us over there in Japan, the Philippines, Thailand, etc. China, obviously in that whole area, is going to have a higher potential risk, right? One of the most important findings is that danger doesn't just depend on temperature. It also depends, I mean, they did a broader study, not just the climate, but they said, let's also analyze the social context. Like, how is poverty in the area, right? What is the infrastructure like? Today, you see here, it's very hot, but there are also rivers, forests. There's this There's a certain prosperity. People have their air conditioning, their fans, whatever. There are good building materials. So people will do well, right? But there are other areas where it's the opposite. Very popular tourist destinations like Cairo, for example, would also be among the areas at highest risk this year when it comes to the heat. Bangkok, Hanoi, Jaipur, Ho Chi Minh. Yes, these are also pointed out by researchers as some of the worst places to be this year. Experts warn that these hours of heat are already causing more deaths year after year. We're talking about the hours of heat on a global level. Thousands of people lose their lives, which are counted as direct or indirect deaths due to heat strokes, but also other conditions that people already have and that get worse with the extra heat, right? The researchers also looked at things like tree coverage, access to air conditioning, access to urban cooling, meaning areas with lots of roofs, lots of small parks with trees, all those kinds of, to identify the worst areas. We've already seen which they were. In contrast, for example, London, Glasgow, and Birmingham appear among the least vulnerable in the global analysis. So the conclusion about these countries, I mean, the countries of Saudi Arabia, in general in the Middle East are together with India, right? They are. And Pakistan and that whole area are the riskiest zones to live in this year, you know? Not in terms of climate, right? And in terms of climate, well, because of war, a little bit too, right? I mean, especially Iraq, Iran, that whole area. Well, we already know how things are. That's intense. I mean, because you might say, well, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, those countries, they have their issues. I mean, with heat too, because they're in the same region. But they have a lot of energy, a lot of air conditioning. There are a lot of places that have things like fountains. So you get a little breeze. Yeah. So you get, I mean, they have very climate controlled areas, well adapted to extreme heat. So, well, that also helps, right? That's also interesting, right? They're not free of risk, but that's also interesting, right? That's the situation with this topic. Let's discuss other key points from different reports. Hey. So this individual we're seeing on screen would be the new director of national intelligence? Or could it be because it's a nomination? It's not like Trump just decides and that's it. It's a nomination. It said that federal prosecutor Jay Clayton was appointed to lead national intelligence because right now there was an interim director. Remember, since they fired Tulsi Gabbard, they put in an interim, but they have to appoint someone soon. So, and they have to get approval to do it. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, announced today the nomination of Jay Clayton, the current federal prosecutor for the Southern District of New York, as the former head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, to become the next director of national intelligence. The position will have responsibilities to oversee and coordinate the work of 18 agencies that make up the intelligence community. That means the CIA is there, the NSA is there. Just imagine the kind of work they have, right? Tulsi Gabbard was there. A pretty important figure for the cabinet, for those close to Trump, let's say. But she was also critical, right? And it's necessary that the intelligence position isn't just about going along with the president, but really about reporting what's actually happening, right? That's also important. So there you have it. Another fact that I also find very interesting is that a study was published, a pretty large one in the United Kingdom, to show whether the UK wants to be part of the European Union or not. 62% want to rejoin the European Union and only 38% want to stay out of the European Union. So there is a huge percentage that wants to go back. They realized it was necessary to be in the European Union, and the English are now wanting to take a step back. They'll need to reach an agreement to try to rejoin the European Union again, because it won't be easy to do. It won't be simple, but it seems that will be the focus soon. By the way, a lot of very curious things are happening in the United Kingdom. I mean, in the United Kingdom, they had to make sacrifices, so to speak. He is the prime minister, and this is the former defense minister. Yesterday, we told you how it happened. Well, he sacrificed himself, so to speak, right? I mean, the resignation of the secretary, of the British Defense Secretary. John Haley basically had a message that it was something inevitable, that it was going to happen. Because in the end, people very close to the prime minister have fallen because he's had his problems, basically. And so he had to sacrifice someone. Among them, it was this person who had to fall. And by the way, he has also criticized Starmer because they're not investing what they promised for the defense issue, right? Also, pay attention to another topic while we're talking about international level politicians. Do you remember him? Do you remember him? What a crazy character. What a crazy character, honestly. Kim Jong-un from North Korea and that crazy guy from South Korea. Well, Jong Suk-yeol, Jeol, the former president of South Korea, well, he tried to stage a coup. Do you remember? He tried to take over the Congress by force with the military and everything. But luckily, the Congress managed to hold a session with the army trying to get in, and they signed a document to overturn the president's order, to counteract it with an official document. They present the document to the military, and the military read it and say, okay, it's correct. And then they step back and leave. Luckily, the army acted lawfully in the sense that they said, well, we follow the president's orders to take over Congress. But Congress said, but here I have an order that says no, and it's above the president. So the army stepped back, but they tried. The fact is that they tried. And so in light of this, and the fact that he first fired military drones at North Korea to see if North Korea would fall into the trap and get angry and fire back at them. And so to say, hey, we're at war and I can't leave the presidency. No, he didn't want to go. He wanted to do what Netanyahu is doing here. He starts conflicts just to prolong his wars repeatedly. He got into trouble or wanted to get into trouble, but he didn't count on Kim Jong-un, North Korea, not wanting to get involved. He said, hey, I'm denouncing this. Be careful or you'll get in trouble, but don't send drones at me. Congress members said, hey, those are our drones. We sent them there. Why send drones to North Korea? Why provoke them into war? It was all a plan because he and his wife were being investigated for corruption. And well, he wanted to get away with it. The thing is, everything has already been discovered. I know he has supporters too, right? But the point is that he was sentenced to 30 years in prison. 30 years in prison, the sentence has already been handed down. A president who will be in prison. According to what the North Korean court reports, this Friday they sentenced the former president Jum Si-jaek-ol. Well, there were people who were asking for the maximum sentence, that is, the death penalty. So the point is that he will be in prison for 30 years for his authority, for sending drones, for authorizing the sending of drones. Military drones to North Korea. So because of this, there is an escalation to possibly justify that he wanted to declassify. He wanted to justify martial law, which fortunately did not happen. The sentence adds up to several legal problems that the president has. So who knows? The problems haven't ended for this person with this verdict. And for now, he could be in prison for at least 30 years. Let's see what happens with the defenses and the back and forth, since sometimes it looks this way. And then they're suddenly released, right? But the spokesperson for the Central District Court of Seoul confirmed that the sentence imposed for the drone case is 30 years in prison. That's what they have confirmed. We'll see if this changes for any reason. Because in the end, there are people who somehow always land on their feet, right? By the way, today was SpaceX's stock market debut, right? So, because of this, Elon Musk becomes the world's first trillionaire. SpaceX had the biggest IPO in history after more than 20 years as a private company. The stock started trading at a price of $150 per share, but quickly, well, it skyrocketed, right? The amount of shareholders went up, and so the price increased. obviously for SpaceX, right? Okay. So, well, that's interesting too. Let's see. Let's check if we have the price increase here, how it was. Look, it was how much? They said it was at $150. It shows me here. I don't know if it's correct, but it shows me $600. If that's the case, then it's a huge mega jump, right? But I'll check it later because maybe the data is wrong. But let me check. It shows me the data like that, but it seems like too much to me. It would be a huge growth, obviously. And well, we'll see. Let's see what's going on with that. But the point is that right now, with that, if he was already the richest billionaire in the world, now he's the mega super billionaire, right? Of course, these people have everything in stocks, right? It's not like they have that money on hand, right? But anyway, that's how they operate. It's a totally atypical exit. In the coming days, there will be several IPOs. I mean, companies that aren't public yet and are going to go public, that are going to be listed. To be listed on the stock exchange, and this, normally what they want is to generate money. I mean, because of the expectation of future profits they have, since right now they basically have losses, but it's because of the expectations they generate. Like trips to Mars or here or there, all the rocket development. I mean, the fact that even NASA needs SpaceX, all of that has shown that SpaceX is the future in the space field. And it's number one, at least for now. Well, that puts them in a unique position where if you want to mine in the future, you'll have to have a contract with SpaceX. If you want to go to the moon, a contract with SpaceX. If you want to go to Mars, a contract with SpaceX, and so on, right? This Starlink wants to send satellites, wants to send this, well, SpaceX. I mean, in the end, SpaceX is becoming a very, very valuable company. Many had already said that Tesla was just the beginning, that SpaceX was going to be much more valuable. And well, who knows if that's going to happen, but at least that's where they're headed, right? In the long term, not right now, but in the long term. So, well, another thing that draws attention is that in this, just before we move on to more comments, there was a helicopter crash. Do you remember? An Apache helicopter, right? An Apache helicopter that was shot down by the Iranians. And that's why there was the reaction from the United States and the bombing of Iran. But do you remember? We said, hey, but they say they rescued the pilots there in the Strait of Hormuz. How did they manage to rescue them without getting shot at? I mean, how did they go get them? Yeah, notice how. Now we know how they use this. What we're seeing here is an autonomous ship. Well, it's a ship. Pay attention to this. I mean, it's a ship. What's this one called? Well, it can be controlled like a drone, but it also has autonomous capability. Yes, this is the one we're going to get a little closer to. This drone is called Corsair, and it can operate in several ways, including fully automatic mode. If it suddenly loses signal and has a mission, for example, to rescue certain people, it will go to the point where it believes the extraction point is. It will wait for orders to leave from there. I mean, let's say it was a rescue by robots, like what happens in Ukraine. Yes, there have also been rescues with robots. Well, this time at sea, the Corsair is 7.3 meters long and can carry up to 450 kilograms, reaching speeds of about 65 kilometers per hour. It is programmed and is about the size of a fishing boat with a silver deck, according to what the naval drone specialist from the Hudson Institute describes. Brian Clark is good. Well, one of those missions that will go down in history as a mission. Well, a unique rescue mission right in the middle of attacks and combat, where you are rescued by a robot in the open sea. It's really something rarely seen. This is an Apache helicopter, similar to the one that Iran shot down, right? But this one falls into the sea. They make it down safely and alive, without any serious injuries, but with no one able to rescue them. These two crew members, then there was one of those boats nearby, and it immediately went over and rescued them and brought them back. So we're seeing some very interesting moments on that topic. Well, let's move on to other matters. I also want to go to the moon. Honestly, Pantelita, even to Mars. I'd like to take a trip. And how is Pantelita Erika Paredes doing? How has it been to be a follower of PP and Vivo since 2001? Before YouTube existed. Well, YouTube started in 2005, so it would have to be around 2007, which I think is when this channel was created. But well, maybe Jordan was following from before, right? So what's the big deal? Awesome, Erica. Thank you so much. Sending you a big greeting. Many thanks also to Marvin, to Eliseo. How have you been, Blanca Barcelona? She says there was a year when thousands of livestock animals died because of the heat. She says, oof, yes. Well, do you remember, are you talking about the one in Pakistan or not? Well, I think the one in Pakistan was the flood, right? But anyway, of course, it affects agriculture. It affects livestock. It even affects your mood, right? In many areas, right? I mean, yeah, it really hits hard. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how this Super Niño thing turns out. How have you been? Partan night. Yeah, how have you been? Greetings to the whole community watching us in Brazil, by the way. We get a lot of comments in Portuguese. Big greetings. Or in Portugal too, I suppose. Hey, greetings, Eliseo. How are you doing? Hey, remember, open forum. Leave your comment as a voice message and all that so we can listen to you. So we can publish your comment here, not your opinion, your report, whatever you are. May you continue to have a space here. Just use it responsibly. But go ahead and send us your report, your message, right? And we'll be happy to listen to it here. Obviously, hey, I'll be back later because, well, it looks like there's going to be a lot of information. So, well, we'll stay tuned. It's the weekend. Enjoy your Friday. Thanks for sharing and spending time with us. We'll keep in touch. Big hug. See you later.